Welcome to today's horror story. It was a night like any other, with the moon barely peeking through a cloudy sky. Emma sat alone in her living room, her favorite book resting forgotten on her lap. The house was silent except for the occasional creak of the floorboards beneath her. A gentle breeze stirred the curtains of the window, carrying with it the scent of rain. Her clock ticked steadily, but in the back of her mind, there was an unsettling sensation. A feeling she couldn't shake, as though she was being watched. It was then that she saw him. Through the thin curtain, she caught a glimpse of a figure standing in the shadows outside her window. She froze. The man stood completely still, his face obscured by the dark. Emma's breath caught in her throat. Her eyes widened, heart pounding in her chest as the cold realization hit her. There was someone outside her house staring at her. The figure didn't move. He just stood there, facing the window. Panic surged through her veins, and she quickly turned her attention to the locked door behind her. The house felt suffocating, every small sound amplified. She had to move, had to do something, but her legs were paralyzed with fear. Her thoughts raced, scrambling for any logical explanation. A prank? Maybe. A coincidence? She wasn't sure. Emma quickly grabbed her phone from the coffee table, her fingers trembling. She dialed 911. Her voice shaky as she whispered into the phone. "There's someone outside my window. I think they're watching me." The dispatcher's calm voice responded, asking for her address and reassuring her that help was on the way. She clutched the phone tighter, unable to tear her gaze away from the figure standing motionless in the dark. Her eyes never left the window, but as she stared, something strange happened. The man's head slowly tilted, not to the side but forward, as if he were leaning in to get a closer look at her. His face was gone, just smooth, pale skin where his features should have been. No eyes, no nose, no mouth. The skin stretched unnaturally, like a mask of flesh. She gasped, backing away from the window, her hand fumbling for the nearest object to defend herself. But he didn't move. Not yet. Her heart pounded, her breath shallow and erratic. She needed to get out of there, but she couldn't tear her eyes away from him. As if reading her mind, the figure's hand raised slowly, and she felt a jolt of terror. She expected him to knock on the glass, or worse, break through it. But instead, his hand moved to his side, and Emma's stomach twisted into knots as she saw something dark and metallic in his grip. A knife. The blade glinted ominously in the moonlight. Emma's mind raced. Should she try to escape through the back door? Should she hide in the closet? She had no time. Her entire body screamed in panic, but her feet wouldn't move. Then the phone rang. The sudden sound pierced the air, sharp and jarring. Emma flinched, her heart leaping into her throat. She quickly answered, her voice trembling. "Hello?" The voice on the other end was distorted, like it was coming from far away. A low, rasping sound that made her skin crawl. "Look out the window!" The voice rasped, cold and calculated. Emma's blood ran cold. The voice was too familiar. It was him, the man. She slammed the phone down, her hands shaking. Her heart pounded, louder now, drowning out everything around her. But the words echoed in her mind. "Look out the window!" With every ounce of courage she could muster, Emma slowly turned back toward the window, dreading what she would see. And there he was. But this time, he wasn't just standing there. His featureless face pressed against the glass. So close she could see the oily sheen of his skin. His breath fogged up the glass, and she could feel his cold gaze through the window, as though he were somehow looking straight into her soul. Emma's legs buckled beneath her, and she stumbled backward, desperately trying to control her breathing. She backed into the corner of the room, her hands trembling as she reached for her phone again. She dialed 911 a second time, her voice frantic as she begged for them to hurry.
"I don't know what he wants, but he's here. Please, please hurry."
She heard the dispatcher's calm voice, but it did little to soothe her. Suddenly, there was a sound that made her blood run even colder, the unmistakable sound of the front door handle turning. Click. The door was unlocking. Emma's breath caught in her throat. She heard the slow, deliberate footsteps of someone outside. The footsteps stopped just beyond the door, and for a moment, all was still. Then came a knock. Software. Hollow. 3 knocks. She covered her mouth, stifling a scream. Her body trembled, every nerve screaming at her to run, to hide. But she was frozen in place. The door handle turned again, but this time Emma heard something more chilling. The sound of the door splintering. Someone was forcing their way in. The wood cracked and groaned under the pressure. The door would be through in seconds. Emma scrambled for the back door, her legs unsteady as she ran toward it. But as she reached for the handle, the phone in her hand rang again. This time she couldn't ignore it. With trembling hands, she answered. The voice on the other end was unmistakable now, its tone colder, sharper than before.
I'm inside.
Her breath caught in her throat. The man was here. He was in her house. The sound of the door being kicked in echoed through the house, followed by the scrape of something heavy moving across the floor. She could hear him coming. Her mind raced for any plan, any escape, but she knew it was too late. She had to act. In one frantic motion, Emma grabbed the lamp from the table beside her and swung it toward the door. It shattered on impact, but the sound was enough to give her a split second to move. She dashed for the window, throwing open the curtains and climbing through the narrow gap. She tumbled into the yard, landing on the wet grass with a thud. But before she could get to her feet, she heard the voice again, closer than ever.
You can't run, Emma. I'm always watching.
The voice had no face, but she could hear the smile in it, unnatural, disturbing. Her heart raced as she scrambled to her feet, the night air chilling her skin. She didn't know where she was running, didn't know where she could hide. All she knew was that the nightmare was far from over. Thanks for listening to today's horror story. Don't forget to follow for more spine-chilling tales.